Hey everybody, Graffiti Wars 2 Kickstarter. This is Mark Lewis Wagner, and I am the graphic novelist working on this project. I have the first book done, and now I'm working on the second one with your Kickstarter help. I think we have up to 33 or 35 backers. Super grateful. And this is my next online video newsletters. So let's see where I am at. So I'll move one of these, hide that floating. Great. So here I am, here we are. And my beginning opening page says, "We are not going into war in the name of peace, as deceitful rhetoric so often declares, but rather for war's own sake, to understand the madness of its love." Little piece there from James Hillman's A Terrible Love of War. That's one of my main books that has inspired this whole program. There's another one by Ed Tick called War and the Soul. So now I'm here in InDesign, and I have a lot already happening. So what I've been doing is, for the last several videos, is showing each individual characters, and I basically have them all fleshed out. So here's this page. So I'm just going to show you what some of the book pages look like. And there's a lot to do with every piece, but things are getting into place. So I've got my Graffitis 2 Spotify playlist. So you'll put your phone up to this if you want to tap into that playlist. You need Spotify. And all the technical stuff that's happening in the books. And then it kind of goes into another quote by James Hillman: "Especially needed is not more specialists inquiring into past wars and future wars, but rather an archetypal psychology of myths, philosophy, and theology of war's deepest mind." And so that's what this book is about. So the first page, then I roll into a piece where it's, a recap from book 1. So talking about things, and here I've dedicated the book. Graffiti Wars is dedicated to all the living things: humans, soldiers, civilians, children, plants, and animals that have died because of wars past, present, and future. So then there's kind of an opening, kind of almost a poem. And, you start kind of seeing some of Oakland. It's sparkling at night, the landscape. Actually, I could pull that landscape out a little bit more. So each one of these pages gets worked on. And this is Photoshop. InDesign has just all this crazy cool, ways of working around stuff that I've learned and I've taught myself. Like, here's where the text goes, and I'm playing around with some text here on the side, and then I can click on this and I can actually get to the Photoshop file, work on it, save it, and it actually changes here. So I have a whole variety of stuff. This is one of my photographs. I've looked at some clip art, how to get, someone photographing something and, drawn on top of it. I've got graffiti in the background. It says time is a constant, not because it is, but because humanity isn't ready for what's next. Even on the black market, time is illegal to buy or sell. It's been that way forever. And sometimes, I've got to put a comment in there, shit happens. So, these are still some placeholder pieces. I've got her out photographing. So now that This page definitely needs work on, but I'll figure out, how to work on. There's a lot of this thing about in the gutter, like in the middle where the book folds, about losing information. So I got to see, like, what kind of information do I need and not need? And, basically I want her to be out photographing. So I've done kind of these, sometimes I do these really quick drawings so that I'll come back and I'll retouch them up later. There she's out near the port, and these are photographs that I took, and then I'll need to touch that up a little bit more so it's not just straight clip art, but that it still looks like what I'm talking about. So, I've talked about some of the story plots and lines is, each one of these has a soundtrack. If you're interested in just kind of listening to some music that is inspired by what I'm doing. She's out photographing some things, and something happens, something changes. So I've got text and sometimes dialogue happening. I'll describe a scene, but then it goes into Birde, going like, what the fuck? And then it's like heart beating as this plane goes by. So again, there's all these pieces where I'm getting close, and each of these pages will get worked on constantly, like over time. Like, I can tell that this page is too dark, but I've got this beast that's kind of jumping over the ridge and attacking her. It can see her heat signature. So as long as I've got something in there that's close or that's moving, that's on the way, then that's great. So I know that I'll lose too much of information here in the gutter, so I'm going to change that around. Change around. But I'm on it. It's working. It's happening. This is where she gets caught up in time. So again, these are placeholders mostly, and I'll go back in and draw it because, like, I'll lose her in that gutter. So she needs to be like over here. But you can see it's happening. I love this one, fade to black. Actually, I need to put this up here, and I need to do that. I can put that way there in the corner. So it's fun to design this stuff. And I've been looking at, like, how do I transition from one scene to another? So I have some ideas about how to do that one. This is actually an example where it fades to black, like it would in a movie, right? So here's this big explosion, fades to black, and then we're in another scene. So that works for me. But I do have some other ideas about how to do some transitions. So rough drawings, I'll go back in there and draw that. I've got the story, how does it feel? It's all about, she's looking across, wind's blowing, there's just constantly, every page gets how does this look? Is it too dark on this? I know enough about printing. So on the computer, it's nice. And on the book, it'll look darker. So I have to kind of just be constantly aware of that. And this is where I've, photographed stuff in Alameda out on the shipyard. And then I've grabbed graffiti that I've photographed over the years. And I compile them all to make a picture. We have this one scene where a helicopter comes over and you've got the sounds of whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Actually, I didn't make this one yet. Like you can see, I've got WH, and here it's just WO. So I'm going to add the H there. That was one of the places where I left off. But, you see a helicopter here. You've seen something here like you're not quite sure. And it says, out of nowhere, a helicopter roars in and low, just over Birde's head. The sound of the main rotors interacting with the tail rotor makes this crazy loud sound. The metal dragonfly gracefully takes a wide turn and circles. So it's been cool for me. Like, what do you say? What do you say in pictures? What do you say in words? What needs an image and what needs words? So I'm pretty far along on this whole first pass. And again, then I'm going in there and tweaking and changing, and eventually I'll pull an artist proof to look at, and then same thing, I'll just go back and keep working and keep working and keep working. Like this page feels pretty good. And I think a lot of this books, so this page then needs almost all these drawings to be redone. But I've got a kind of a sense or a flow where I'm choosing something. Here I have a blue, purple, red background. This is just on paper, so I don't know how that will work. I might have to put that into color somehow. But if I redraw the stuff, that's the next phase of everything. So that's what I wanted to share. Wish me well, and thanks for being a part of this whole project.